Good afternoon, everyone. We're just waiting on, so make yourself at home. Just to give you a little bit of a warning, we're trying out a new binder for me. This could be a process. Bear with me. Well, that's the agenda. Now, it's really tough when you're illiterate. You don't have to read that much. It's really. Okay. So we are going to confirmation of quorum. I believe we have. Call to order. And the chair will acknowledge that we are located on the traditional territory of the Lakotach people. Adoption of agenda. Have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Botsett Colbert. Okay. Moved by Julie and second by Mr. Wally, Director Wally. Okay, petition and delegations. Today we have the Connective Support Society. We have John Horn. John, are you on the line?
Yes, we're here and we're online and ready to go whenever you are.
Okay, thank you, John. As per the procedure bylaw, you have 10 minutes. Please go ahead.
All right, we thank you for having us here today, and I'll just introduce my two colleagues that I have with me. I'm John Horn, the Executive Director of Connective Support Society. You might have known us by a previous name of the Nanaimo Region John Howard Society, but in a fit of modernization, we've changed our name and called ourselves Connective Support Society, and we're based in Nanaimo. I have with me today Teresa McDonald from Rent Bank and Azura Kynes, who's a staff member in the Rent Bank as well, and they'll be taking you through this PowerPoint. And so without further ado, maybe I'll ask Azura to lead us off.
Yeah, I see that you have the PowerPoint up there. I'm actually just going to share our screen so that I can go through it as we go. All right, Teresa.
Oh, so we're just going to briefly say what we do, who we help, the cost of the program, and how you can help. Yeah. So what we do is give financial assistance to people who have come across just an economic glitch during a month. Either their EI hasn't started like that should, or their PWD, or there's been a car payment or car breakdown. And so it's made it difficult for them to meet their financial obligations, such as rent or utilities. So we will help people with arrears. We will help them with first month and damage deposit. And we will help with a combination of rent and utilities. And the maximum for a single person is $1,500 and $1,800 for a family. And these are non-interest loans, repayable over a 24-month period. Just divide whatever you get by 24, and those are your payments per month. And yeah, let's keep housed people housed, who just everybody's paycheck to paycheck these days. So we're there to make sure they can stay in their homes and get themselves organized.
We do also support people in accessing other resources in the community that would assist them if we can see a way to do that. So just so you know, it's not just a rent bank service. We refer and advocate for people to access other services if we think that will be of assistance to them.
So currently, Connective Support Society in Nanaimo is servicing the rent bank for the city of Nanaimo and the regional district of Nanaimo. BC Rent Bank is a province-wide program. Everywhere else in the island, aside from Victoria, the Comox Valley, and the Cowichan Valley, are actually serviced by the Kamloops Rent Bank. They take over all the smaller municipalities across BC. Our goal moving forward into the next fiscal year is to take over the rest of the island. So we are planning on servicing the rent banks for the Mount Waddington Regional District, the Alberni-Clackett Regional District, and the Strathcona Regional District, aside from the Comox Valley. The goal here is to create like a more accessible program. So a lot of people have barriers in technology or communication or transportation. By taking over the rest of the island, we'd create a more localized approach. We're closer, we can connect with local services in those areas to make it a more accessible program. And also Kamloops doesn't have as much time because they're taking over the whole province to create those connections with local nonprofits and other groups to make it more accessible. So starting April 1st, we are planning on taking over the rest of the island. And right now we're just connecting with all the communities, creating awareness that the program is going to be a little more accessible. And yeah, John's going to talk a little bit more about the money side of things.
Thanks for that. And we will be conducting a communications campaign as well in the communities that we serve so that residents are aware of the rent bank program. There's some awareness now, but I think it's a fairly low level. We would try to encourage residents to become aware and make sure that everyone knows that this resource is potentially available to them. So what we're looking at is currently we're serving the regional district in the city of Nanaimo. And basically, they've provided us with the loan capital, the city of Nanaimo. And you'll see that number of $116,000. That's not an annual amount. That's the amount they gave us to sort of provide the seed capital for all the loans. That was loaned, given to us in March of 2021. And we're just running to the end of that loan capital now. So typically that number of $116,000, that's bought them almost 2 years worth of rent bank loans. The operating costs, which is the staffing function, and our administrative pieces, there's lots of tracking of loans and NSF things, etc. So altogether, the operating expenses are about $65,000 currently. If we move to serve the rest of Vancouver Island with the exclusions we've already noted, then our cost to provide the function would rise by about $35,000 a year, $32,000 a year. We did need additional loan capital as well of about $100,000. And those are the numbers that we're looking at as additional funding we will need to make the rent bank work effectively for the North Island. I'm going to say that most of that money will come from the province via the BC Rent Bank folks. They have asked us, though, to go to our local partners and to see what contributions we can get towards these costs. So the city of Nanaimo has been very good to us. As you'll see, they've given us $116,000, and we'll be going back to them for the same sort of level of ask for the next coming fiscal period. And altogether, we're going to be going throughout the Vancouver Island area and talking to both municipalities and regional districts. And each district and each municipality we talk to, we're going to ask for the same amount of money, and it's $10,000 as an annual contribution. So that's effectively why we're here today, to present that request to yourself. We have, of course, made that request of the member municipalities in your regional district, as well as others. And we expect that the municipalities and the members of the regional districts will get together, and between you all, you'll decide what's appropriate to give us. And what we're doing is just putting a number on the table that we think is a reasonable contribution to these costs. And again, the provincial funding will probably be the bulk of the expenses that will be covered by them, and the contribution from the municipal governments and regional districts would be, probably a 20 or 30% piece of that. So that's our ask of yourselves, is an annual contribution of $10,000 as a regional district. We'd serve all the member municipalities with the exception of those who are served by a rent bank already. And that would be while we're standing in front of you today. So I think that concludes our PowerPoint presentation. And I'm wondering if you have any questions or if you have any comments, we're happy to take those at the moment, or certainly respond to any inquiries that you have. So,
Director Vonish.
Thank you for the presentation. I think this is a very successful thing. I've seen it happen in Vancouver. My question is, why do you require an annual contribution if these are loans that are being paid back?
Well, I'll tell you, the loan payback is about a 60% repayment rate. So we've talked about this with other rent banks in British Columbia, and the consensus is this: if we were getting 100% of our loans back, we're probably loaning to the wrong people. We are those folks who are there to replace, so to speak, the payday loan industry. I'm going to call it the loan shark industry. And so if we were getting 20% payback, we're probably loaning to the wrong people as well. So we really are trying to strive for aiming at a cohort of people who can reasonably be expected to pay us back, but are also not financially well off. So we may have some defaults. So we get about 60% of our loan payments back. And then also keep in mind that we send it out as a lump sum, but it comes trickling back over a 2-year period. So it's not actually, it's not exactly a 1-to-1 ratio in that sense, right? So essentially the operating expenses is, we're going to load those costs onto the BC Rent Bank folks. And essentially what we're asking the local governments to contribute towards is the loan capital. And that's where we would use your money. If you choose to give us some, we'll put it into the loan capital fund. So it goes directly to residents in need of assistance with paying the rent, essentially. So, hopefully I've answered your question.
Thank you, and just noting that this is something I would support and would look forward to working with the board to figure out a way to be able to make this happen.
Thank you. We do acknowledge that rents are increasing right up and down the island, and no one's the exception to that anymore. So we're seeing more and more people are kind of in rent distress because wages aren't increasing as fast as rents are, as we all know. So that's just a side note.
So Director Vonage, are you looking at making a motion that we get a staff report? Staff report so we can look at this further? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I wasn't sure, yeah. I'd like to make a motion that staff come back with a report on how we might be able to support this initiative.
Thank you. Second, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Thank you very much for your presentation. And
We appreciate your time. Thank you.
no, thank you. Take care now.
All right. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So adoption of minutes. Do I have a motion that the minutes of the regular council meeting, the board, meeting that was held December 7th, 2022 be adopted?
So moved. Second.
So we have Director Colburn and Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, adopt business arising from minutes? None? Public consideration is none, notice of motion is none. Chair's report. I have a 45-minute presentation. No? Okay, we'll save that for another day. Committee reports. Electoral area service committees. Sorry, Director Colburn? Do we have a second? Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. So then we go down to staff reports, correct? No? Oh, I missed one, sorry. Extraterritorial reports, that the Chief Administrative Officer will provide a verbal report update to the board on Solid Waste Advisory Committee. CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a bit of a routine here is that for the solid waste service, what happens is we have an advisory committee. We have advisory committees as well for 911. What that does is comprise all the regional districts, member municipalities for that service. Because that service is run through the Comox Strathcona, they prepare the reports. We have discussion on those reports. We make comments on those, and part of the intent is for this group to come back and advise you, give you a heads up on what's coming forward. So there may be, let's say, a little bit of a bias that comes from the CBRD at times in terms of what they want. I would say they're quite lively discussions amongst staff in terms of those reports. So the timing of it doesn't work out very well that we're able to bring a written report here. So we have a placeholder on every month on the board that will give you a verbal update and kind of a heads up to things maybe that you'd like to know about before you get into the meeting. So I think the next solid waste meeting is next Thursday, for example, right? So Sheena will present what she has in terms of things that maybe you want to be attuned to, and I'll add an editorial on that, and happy to answer any questions. But again, bit of a heads up going into there, because I think some of the items, there's more than meets the eye in the report there, so. Sheena?
Thank you, through the chair. Hello, directors. So the Comox Strathcona, does this sound okay? Sorry. The Comox Strathcona Waste Management Advisory Committee was held on January 5th. As the CAO mentioned, the board meeting will be on January 19th. There were 5 draft staff reports presented. There's 2 that I think have some information in them that you folks might want to hear about ahead of time. So the first is about their 2023 financial plan. They are looking to increase the tax requisition rate from 0.1159 per $1,000 of assessed value to 0.1274 per $1,000 of assessed value. So that's a variance of a little over a cent per $1,000. They are looking to increase their requisition rate to $5.5 million, which is up from the current rate, which is 5. In 2019, it was at $6 million. It was reduced in 2021 as part of their COVID response plan with a strategy to be scaled back up to that $6 million range by 2025. The intent was that the rate would stay low for 5 years and then it would be increased at 2025, but they found that their financial plan was not sustainable under that model, and they also wanted to avoid having a large tax rate increase in 2025. A housing report that I reviewed had the average house in the Strathcona Regional District valued at just over $624,000. For that average household, we will see an increase of about $7.21 per year for this tax requisition.
So if I can, Sheena, sorry to interrupt. This is both something I feel is important and an editorial I just honestly can't resist contributing to. So for those that haven't been part of the regional district and gone to solid waste in the past, is that traditionally, and when I say traditionally, probably no longer than 5 years ago, solid waste was the operations funds for the service was funded by tipping fees. For a number of factors, the solid waste group and the CVRD has convinced the board that tipping fees should stay relatively low or consistent with other groups, and the gap that needs to be made up there through requisition. So, you know, there's a couple things to think about here. One is the more expensive a house you have, the more you just pay on tax requisition. It doesn't matter how much recycling or environmentally appropriate things your community or family are doing, you are paying that. So, you know, in local government, we subsidize, you know, healthcare, recreation, a number of things. And now we've gotten into the business. And, you know, this is my perspective, and I know a number of directors that have been around share this, is that we're subsidizing solid waste. So when a commercial truck or whoever goes over the scale at landfill, it's a subsidized rate that is being made up by requisition. I think we're probably one of the highest requisitions in the province in terms of collecting that money through tax and not tipping fees. And it's probably something you haven't been aware of or know of. And so it's gone from, help me out, Gerald, too, if you can remember, we were 1, 2 million 3-4 years ago. We climbed up to 6, we backed down to 5, and now we're climbing back up. And again, it's just a tax on it. If you own a 1-bedroom condo in Campbell River and generate basically no garbage, you're paying the requisition no matter what. And I think it's something that maybe you should think about and explore through solid waste. Is that something that you want to continue, or you'd like to see a staff report? Because one thing that's easy for staff is just to increase requisition, right? It's just automatic money. You don't have to do any work. You don't have to figure out your operational money and how you're going to generate and estimate tonnages. You just throw the requisition up there. And we've climbed to $6 million, and it's just because they're reluctant to raise the tipping fees. And in most other regional districts, for example, the CRD has no requisition. 100% of what they generate comes from the tipping fee. And then you've got a variety of other communities, like Nanaimo will have a 12% requisition to supplement that. And Regional District Nanaimo is much larger than our regional district and is generating, I think, 1.5 in requisition. We're 6 million. I personally, I don't vote on anything. I think that's out of control. and that's just getting farther and farther. So when you see them, when you're at solid waste, I think it's worthy of a discussion or staff report or questions about the philosophy of what that is, and just leaning on taxation and assessment. So Gerald probably can add.
Director Wally?
Thank you. Yes, in support of what Mr. Leach is saying here, you'll hear the excuse of the Solid Waste Board that this will increase illegal dumping. They have no evidence of that. That's just an excuse. It's a lot cheaper to enforce illegal dumping infractions than it is to pay this requisition, so we'd be much better off with tipping fees as it always used to be. Thank you.
Any comments from any other director? Director Colburn?
I do think that staff from the solid waste function is putting us in a category that is similar to others in the province about our tipping fees. So that is a valid point that they do have, definitely. That 130 per ton, like we're in kind of a medium rate of tipping fees, and so. But just because it's always been done that way doesn't mean that's the way it needs to be done.
So just one more quick context. I had a quick conversation with Kermit earlier about budget, and I just want to put this in context. So what Sheena says, based on the average home in the regional district, the solid waste only, your solid waste, when you get 911, you get hospital, everything, but your solid waste increase in requisition is going to be $7.21 a home. I project for Campbell River, our complete regional services administration is going to be less than that. So all the services we provide here for Campbell River combined will be less than the $7.21 for one service. So, you know, just mull that around in your head.
Director Wally?
Thank you. Just one further comment. For all the little municipalities like Saywards, Ballastasas, and so on, it's a lot easier for us to control the output of our solid waste. And because we're billed on the volumes that our trucks dump, it can have a major impact on us. So we can reduce our cost by reducing our output, where if it's just requisition, there's nothing we can do and there's no point. So it's really beneficial for us to do this.
Director Colburn?
And further to that, all of the smaller, we are heavily subsidized by the majority.
Thank you. Director Vonish?
Just a question for the board. Is it worth us, asking staff to put together a strategy for us to engage with the Waste Management Board?
If it's the will of the board, I'm happy to prepare, if anybody wants, a resolution for a staff report, so you can have them provide you more information, historical basis for it, to see where we got, the reasoning why, and how much we're at. Certainly, I can prepare that for anybody.
Director Vonish?
I was thinking more like the strategy for us to approach them with what our request is.
I don't know what your request is. I don't know what everybody's, collective is. It's a cast of thousands on that board, obviously. So I think it's something that it's worthy of you asking for a staff report, and then, getting some of that background and seeing how you individually feel about those things, right? And I just want to give you a heads up, some context in terms of it. And it's one of those, for myself working in local government, I never thought I'd see a requisition for solid waste. That just, I get hospital and I get recreation, that stuff, but boy, the subsidy is climbing up there, and I think we're probably the highest in the province in terms of subsidies for requisition for solid waste.
So Director Vonish, do you want to make a motion on a staff report? Is that where you're going?
I don't think so. I'm just putting it out there as like a possibility to see if there is interest. I'm not prepared to make a motion right now.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Director Dahl?
I'll make that motion that the CAO
Well,
is.
as I was just corrected.
I'll write something up for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want something written up for him? Director Chapman?
It's not so much written up, but when it comes to voting, are we all voted at the board's level down there?
It's an uphill battle. So technically speaking, yes, and I think that's where, some partnerships and alliances with with folks down south need to be. I think Julie and Gerald might support, but I think if it's north-south, I think technically speaking you are, but that doesn't mean you can't make relationships and alliances to tip the scales of that.
Director Chapman?
Just as a follow-up, then, if that's the case, then we need to be more strategic in how we approach this. So you're going to present some information for us, a resolution, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, I can hear the CEO down there pounding his fist against the wall with my picture on it right now, but I'll present a resolution to Kermit that will force them to produce a report that gives you the history, so you have the proper context, and you can make a decision on how appropriate that feels. But again, whether this is appropriate or not, my personal feeling is you got a lot of folks. We had our inaugural East meeting today. We're just hitting the ground running. You're going to solid waste, and next Thursday they present you with a budget and a requisition increase and no history on where that came from. I'm not certain that's appropriate from my perspective. So my job here is to say heads up on that. I might want some if I was you.
Director Rice?
Just one thing that I'd like to add is that Area D pays for its own garbage services. So, and they're becoming quite high, so this is quite interesting, and hopefully you can include some information in that, because I think most of the residents in Area D are paying about $600 or $700 a year for garbage pickup.
Well, I got bad news for you. You are paying that requisition. Area D, the solid waste service doesn't include collection, so there's many of you that are paying your own collection, but your folks are paying the requisition.
I know that.
So you double dipped on that, if you will. You pay your collection and you pay the requisition, and if you happen to go to the landfill, you pay the tipping fee. So.
Hey, thank you. Go ahead.
So a couple other things on that financial report might make you a little bit happier. Zabelos and Cortez Island depots will be receiving some minor improvements such as signage, safety, and accessibility upgrades in 2023 under that financial report. The Quadra Island Recycle Depot has $280,000 earmarked to undertake the necessary improvements to meet the Recycle BC requirements. So those improvements should be forthcoming. The Oyster River Recycling Depot is going to begin public consultation and planning for upgrades, and the Tassis landfill's life expectancy has been extended from 2024-2025 to 2030-2031. So a little bit more positive. The other draft staff report that I'd like to mention is about the Regional Solid Waste Advisories Committee for the update of the Solid Waste Management Plan. 15 members of the public have been appointed to the public committee, including 9 members from the CVRD and 6 from the SRD. 7 are from 4 urban municipalities, being Campbell River, Courtenay, Comox, and Cumberland. And 6 are from key sectors. 8 are from small municipalities, island communities, or rural areas. In the SRD, electoral areas A, Tassis, Zabelos, and Gold River did not have any representatives apply, so I don't know if you might want to ask them about how they went about recruiting. There is also a technical advisory committee that will form part of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee that is made up of members from the municipalities and their solid waste staff. Aside from Campbell River, there were no member municipalities of the SRD that were confirmed to be part of that working group. The gentleman from Tassis was tentative, but if there's anybody else who has solid waste staff who might be interested, I would encourage you to reach out or nominate them or whatever the process is. I think there might be some benefit to having better representation there. And at the meeting, they did confirm that reimbursement for travel expenses will be provided for any in-person meetings from the Sayward, Gold River, Tassis, or Zabelos communities. And that was it. There are other staff reports that you guys will see, but I don't think they provided any really contentious information.
So just to follow up on one point there, I would encourage you to encourage your CEOs to attend the advisory committee meetings. If none of us attend, then it's kind of like a hot knife through butter for the Comox Valley staff. There's nobody pushing back on it. And I would say they're not very well attended by our member munis. So again, I would encourage you to have your CEOs attend these things, because that's where the pushback happens.
Thank you. Motion to receive?
So moved.
Thank you. Director Colburn.
And I really appreciate the opportunity to have this heads up before those meetings. I think that necessarily capacity-wise, just speaking for our small community, sometimes it's not a reality for us. But coming from this, the board table, I think is really important. So I just want to thank staff for putting this in there. I think it's fantastic.
Agreed. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Staff reports, Surge Narrow Wildfire Brigade. Thank you. Second, we have Mr. Director Wally and Director Mulwini.
Mr. Chair, I believe Sean Koopman will speak to this for us.
Mr. Koopman.
So in 1981, the Clash put out their classic single, Should We Say or Should We Go? And here I am with you 41 years later asking you the same question. Should we stay with this initiative or should we take no action and leave it alone? The factors that you should consider when selecting option A or option B, we had about a 45% return response rate on the surveys. 40 of those constituents want us to move forward with this service right away. 27 of them wanted more consultation, either through meetings or establishing a steering committee. 15 of them wanted us to do nothing.
Okay. So, folks, we got A or B. Do we have a motion? Sorry.
So just a little context with that, if you will. So there's some issues obviously with wildfires out in communities in the past, and we get folks approaching the board and saying, hey, look, that was a tragedy. We didn't have the infrastructure. Can you look at exploring a fire service out there? So we say, you know, happy to do that. The board supports that. We go out and do the study, the survey, and comes back that says, you know, kind of lukewarm, you know, what do we do? So this is where we are with the fire brigade and Surge Narrows and looking for board direction.
Okay, we're still on receipt.
Move receipt.
I'm sorry? We're waiting on a vote, actually. So all in favor on receipt? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Director Mulwini.
Thank you. I would like to move option A plus because I submitted a slight edit to Edith. Edited to read that the regional district continue to investigate the Surge Narrows Wildfire Brigade initiative with a steering committee of nominated Outer Discovery Islands community members, and that a further report be prepared following the conclusion of those investigations.
Do I have a second? Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, sorry, let me just, okay, Advisory Planning Commission, that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received. Do I have a motion, please? For receipt?
Move receipt.
Director Mulwini and Director Wally, second. Discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Okay, motion is carried. Our corporate officer will speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the report in front of you today is a result of a motion from the board directing staff to provide some background around advisory planning commissions and some options for the board to consider around how those members are recruited, their terms of office, and what is the history of the whole APC matter at the Strathcona Regional District. So that is what the report attempts to do, and if directors have any subsequents they wish us to pursue, then we'll be pleased to hear that.
Director Colburn. Sorry, your microphone is on. Oh, thank you. Any Director Rice?
I would like to move option A.
Let's motion. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Director Mahoney? Sorry, go ahead, CAO.
Option A, that a further report and draft bylaw be prepared for further consideration based on the questions raised in the December 16, 22 report from the CAO.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, number 3, public hearing. That the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received. We're on receipt? Motion?
Move receipt.
Second.
Director Mahoney, and second was Director Vonish. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you. So I think the impetus of this basically is when we look at public notice notification, public hearing notification, is that the Local Government Act has some stringent requirements that may not be up to date, if you will, or align with rural areas and how they provide notification. So there's an easy way and a difficult way, basically to find our way through this. There has to be a consistent notification method that is approved by the Local Government Act. And I think based on Director Mawhinney and who brought this motion forward, is that there's a solution in the alternatives in the report that says basically stay with the status quo, and we can layer notification on top of our local government requirements, and that's basically the simplest thing to do. It adds some financial burden that's not really significant to us, and is just an easy thing to do to get notification out there. Communities are quite different too nowadays, right? You know, the technical weekly publication for Quadra, technically speaking, is the Campbell River Mirror. Well, in reality, that's not really the publication that the people use over there, but it fits Local Government Act requirements. So again, we have an alternative in that I believe Director Mawhinney is going to move that can simply cure that issue.
Thank you. Let's make the vote. So we're going to B, that the chair. No, sorry. Option A or B?
May I speak?
Director Mawhinney?
Thank you. I wanted to thank the staff for the report, and there are certainly layers of provincial complexity to the issue of acceptable notice to residents. And Area C has a robust local media landscape which connects directly with residents, perhaps different than some locations in the Strathcona Regional District. I'm hopeful that moving option A will add direction to staff which will support the majority of residents of Area C being notified in print of upcoming public hearings.
So Director Mawhinney, you want to make a motion?
I'd like to move option A.
Director Mawhinney, second is Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Early earthquake warning system agreement. The report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Move receipt, Colburn.
Colburn, second is Director Lott. Discussion.
Mr. Chair,
CEO?
if I may, I'll give you some background. I believe this board has already seen some of these early earthquake warnings. They're related to Connected Coast, whereas we obviously have the Connected Coast Network in. There's an advantage for NRCan to look at early earthquake warnings, tsunami stations in there, and to use the network as a benefit to getting data and notification earlier on this. They have a way of granting us money to build these stations. Obviously, Connected Coast, we're not a charity. They want these stations in. We're happy to build them if they supply the money for them. So they've come up with a quote-unquote grant program that is narrowed down to only applicable to the SRD. But they have to come to local government. That's their only stipulation. So instead of going the Connected Coast Network Corp, they come to this, and we keep building on that network. As they come up with more funds, they grant us more money to build more stations. So this is simply an update to the NRCan agreement to amend it to add more stations.
Thank you. So B is that the chair and the corporate officer. No, we're still take a vote on A. Okay, we're going to do a vote on A. Sorry, Director Mawhinney? No? No, I was just informed that we haven't finished that yet. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. Director Davis.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there are direct municipal costs associated with this, or will this all be grant-driven?
None, it's 100% funded by NRCan.
Okay, thanks for that.
Director Moini.
Thank you. I was noticing in the report that the original 16 nodes had a targeted completion date of March 2023, but it looks like that's being pushed out to 2024. And I was wondering if there are financial implications if the Connected Coast doesn't meet their March 2024 target.
No, I mean, these are again target dates because it has to align with the Connected Coast Network, so that's where the March 2023 came from, but no, we're fine.
Director Davis?
Yeah, I have another question. I've had these discussions before with our emergency coordinator, but one of my concerns, like, this is an offshore earthquake warning system, and obviously an earthquake happens, we're gonna feel it anyway. But one of my concerns is a tsunami warning system, and in the case of Tassus, particular Tassus, is that if we have an earthquake, there may be possibilities of a tsunami being generated within the inlet, either from rockfall or subsea subsidence of, what would you say, like an estuary area, sometimes they slump. And I'm interested in having a sensor put into Tassus Inlet, and I think there's other areas that would have similar concerns, such as Gold River and Zabalas. And I'm just wondering if any consideration has been given to that.
If I can, Mr. Chair, yes, so I label it as early earthquake warning. It's a tsunami warning system as well. Off the top of my head, I don't know where those locations are. I can certainly get them and provide them to you. Their locations obviously identified by NRCan as strategic areas susceptible to tsunamis. They're on the west coast and up the north coast of BC. So I can get you a map certainly of where those are. They are dictated to us. They are clearly the professionals in that are aware of the sensitive areas. So I can get a map for you, if you will, of the areas. Oh, Sheena says she knows. There you go.
Yeah, if I could respond, that would be useful to us. I noticed the type of sensors you're talking about are accelerometers. I guess what I'd be looking at is something more towards sensing water pressure changes, because pressure change would be radical in terms of generating local waves. So what I'm looking at is a different form of sensor that's placed within the inlets directly on the fiber optic lines.
Go ahead.
Through the chair to Director Davis. There is a sensor going into Tassus. As the CAO mentioned, the equipment is spec'd by Natural Resource Areas Canada. We can definitely have conversations about what might be required to amend that. I expect that would impact the financial. I don't know if they would cover that. But there's a sensor going to Tassus as well as in Gold River. The list of all of the sites is contained in Schedule A within the agenda. And we're hoping to put the sites on the Connected Coast map. We're just waiting for permission from NRCan for that.
Okay, again, is that an offshore sensor, like off the west coast of Nook Island, or is this something that's particular to Tassus Inlet?
It's particular to Tassus Inlet.
Thank you.
Thank you. We need Director Vonish.
Can I make the motion to that the chair and the corporate officer be authorized to execute the updated contribution collaboration agreements with Natural Resources Canada regarding the installation of the earthquake early warning system extended network?
Do I have a second, Director Colburn? Sorry, you were just a little slow with that, just about that much. Yeah, just that much. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Crown Land Referral Report, that the report from the CAO be received.
So moved, Colburn.
Director Colburn, second. Director Wally, discussion? Director Wally?
I wonder if it would be possible for staff to send these referrals out by email to the directors. We used to do that years ago. it was kind of useful to have a heads up on those.
Thank you. CAO?
We had done that in the past. In fact, though, those referrals, if you will, to the individual directors needed to come from the board. And so we've kind of more aligned with the regulation bringing them to the board. And if there is, recommendations, if you will, or comments, that they can certainly come here and then we can send them back. So it's just a little bit more of a transparency that here it is, but certainly if you want to have or make comments, you can include them and we can send them along with the referrals.
Director Mowini?
I appreciate that the information needs to come from the board, but there was 2 Area C relevant Crown land referrals in this report, and reading those over at the same time as everything else on the agenda was maybe a little bit extra, and I would love to have been able to receive them earlier so I would have had other time to read them, and then we could still discuss them here. And I have one question, which was that item 3, the mosaic log sort, which is out in Cordero Channel. I'm curious that you didn't mention if the water portion has the correct zoning. I read that the water areas are being expanded, and I was wondering if those would need to be zoned access 3.
I believe Annika is going to speak to this.
Thank you, through the chair to the director. The zoning in place in the log sort area is not applicable to the activities associated with the log sort, as per the quote provided to you in the staff report. Jurisdictionally, we don't have authority to zone that for the log sort, as per the bylaw.
As per the which bylaw? The Quadra Island zoning bylaw?
Your zoning bylaw, correct.
And that includes water areas?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Director Bonish.
So is now the time to make comments on these things?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to address the Argosy Sea Farms one in Area B. This is a Clahoos First Nation-owned business for an existing aquaculture license to adjust the zoning to allow them to do seaweed farming, kelp farming. It's a carbon sink. This is a business that actually pulls carbon in, brings jobs to the island. It's environmentally friendly, and I would like to see this board support the zoning changes that are being requested by Argosy Sea Farms and the Clahoos First Nation.
So I realize this is new to some of the folks here, but I think what the process likely should be is that if you have comments likely for your area, when you get the agenda on Friday and you go through it, you provide written comments and this board accepts it. The comments must come from the board. So what weight those comments even have or what they do with them is, who knows? But I think it's not so much a motion, but if you have comments to provide, then I think you should prepare them before, bring them forward, and have the board receive them.
So is it too late to do that?
No, certainly we can do that, but I think moving forward, and I realize this is a new process, but we have new people here then that's what we do, rather than, it's hard for us to capture, your editorial and comment and submit that. If you have something written, that'll be much easier for all of us.
Thank you.
Now we're going to Director Colbert.
So process-wise, though, what does that mean then? So at this board right now, we accept those comments, or by, I'm just wondering about process here. So by accepting the report, we're accepting those comments as well? How are...
I don't, Aniko, is there any, if we defer this and then to the next meeting, is it time sensitive or not, or?
Yeah, the portals do close for these applications. However, we can send additional follow-up information via email. We can advise the contact at Front Counter that there will be additional comments coming from the board following the next board meeting.
Okay, let's do that, because again, I haven't prepared you enough to know that you submitted that, so we'll put, excuse me, a placeholder on the agenda, and if you can submit the comments for whatever that is, we'll receive them at the next board meeting and submit them.
Okay, any further discussion? Director
Again,
Colburn?
process-wise, do you need a deferral?
I think that would be appropriate to defer the referrals until the January 25th meeting.
So moved. Thank you for your guidance.
Okay, we're still on receipt. Okay, so all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And there was a subsequent, Director Colburn?
That we defer any comments until the next full meeting of the board on the 25th. Thank you.
Director Wally is second. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Bylaws, bylaw number 432 and 433, Quadralink. Move receipt for Director Wally. Director Colburn is second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And B, that the report on the public hearing of the bylaw 432 and 433 be related records and received. I have a motion, please.
I'll
Wally?
second that, and I have a comment on receipt, please.
Director Mohini is second, and discussion. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have two questions regarding the public hearing report itself. One is regarding the division of 178 pages between the spoken submissions from the public hearing and the written submissions which were received prior to the deadline. 178 pages is a lot of scrolling. I believe it would benefit directors and any others interested in reading the submissions if we were able to locate the entirety of public submissions in the same location of the report. Would it be possible to make this change to future reports? And I have a second question, but I don't know, should I say them both at once, or?
No, we'll go to our corporate officer first.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yes, we are aware, this is a fairly lengthy public hearing record, and we are aware, not just from Director Mawhinney, but also some members of the public who questioned and had concerns about their particular submission. So we are looking at improving that, and certainly the way things are currently classified or tallied in the report is something we want to especially look at, because that may be confusing for some people, and there's always the possibility of human error. We want to avoid that. So I think we are going to be looking at that, if that's something that Director is interested in having us do.
And that actually speaks to my second question, Mr. Chair, which was that in the chart, which begins on page 178, lists the names of people who provided written submissions and categorizes them into in favor, opposed, or neutral. And the submissions in the following pages of the report are also sorted into sections as per that chart. And some of them were clearly miscategorized. I felt that seeing this mistake could be frustrating to those who took the time to write a submission with a particular viewpoint. So I'm hoping that we could make changes so that future residents won't find their letter marked as neutral or in favor of something when the language of the letter would suggest otherwise.
Corporate officer, sorry, CEO.
I guess the simple answer is sure, yeah. You know, opinions are subjective, and I think whether they went in one pile or the other really shouldn't or doesn't matter, because you're reading every submission anyways, and you may form a different subjective opinion whether they were in favor or not. Having said that, I think we will categorize them in the future to as a or benign order as we can, such as date, and I think it was just in an effort to try to, you know, properly categorize or make things simpler but I think that's failed. So we'll simply sort them by date. Yeah.
That's awesome, thank you.
We're still on B, so we'll go to the vote, please. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, it is carried. C, the bylaw 432 be given third reading. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move third reading.
Director Mahoney and Director Wally second. Discussion? Director Mahoney?
Thank you, Director Baker. This application has been of significant interest to many islanders. There were over 700 pages of documents, which included hundreds of submissions. I read every one. Thank you to the islanders, including many neighbors of the application, for being involved in the process. Themes from the hundreds of submissions made clear that some islanders value golfing as a recreational activity, while many more have concerns for Quadra's infrastructure and its ability to support more tourism from oversized vehicles. In the public comment record, narrow rural roads, additional ferry pressure, and water concerns were top of mind for those who took the time to engage. Quadralinks did consider public input and made changes to their original application, and I have no doubt that Quadralinks would be a good neighbor, as many of the positive submissions indicated. However, in this case, Quadra's appetite for additional summer RV traffic and balancing the needs of year-round residents with summer tourism outweighs the good neighbor argument for me. I will be voting against this motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Right, go to vote. All in favor? Opposed? I'm sorry? Just the electoral areas. I apologize. Just electoral is opposed. All four? Thank you. The motion is defeated.
So, Mr. Chairman, that makes D superfluous.
I'm sorry, what was the word you just used?
Unnecessary.
Is that written somewhere in here for me? Thank you. And E is that bylaw 433 be given third reading. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move third reading.
Director Mahoney and Director Wally is second. Discussion? Electoral areas only. All in favor? For electoral areas only, all in favor? Opposed? All four? Thank you. Motion is defeated. And F, that bylaw 433 being Quadra Island zoning. It is, isn't it? We're just going to pass that by. Thank you. So we're going to go to bylaw 461, electoral area C or service. And a report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received. Motion, please.
Move receipt.
Second. Director Mahoney and Director Vonish was first. Discussion. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a little background, this bylaw was deferred by the previous board as the timing of it was coming during election when folks weren't going to run again. And so it's been brought back to this board with a number of options available for, depending on what the board would choose for the day.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And there's a subsequent?
There's options.
There's options A, B, and C. Director Mahoney.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move option C, that we develop a new service establishing bylaw that will be seen more favorably by ratepayers, and that this may require additional consultation with users and other interested parties, which will be conducted from the outset to ensure that identified objectives of the service can be met by the regional district.
Director Wally, second. Further discussion? Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Years ago, in the 1990s, the federal government was divesting itself of harbors. I was worked with one municipality that got involved, and it turned out to be a big boondoggle. So I support option C. It'll give us time to more clearly evaluate the financial cost and how this is going to run. I think we're going to be surprised at the cost it's going to take to keep this running.
Any further discussion? CAO?
Just a little history comments on that. So 8 years ago, I guess, Transport Canada was looking to divest a number of wharves to all kinds of areas. The carrot they dangled in front of communities was, we'll give you a bunch of capital money to upgrade those. And so Area C bid on that. We received several $1 million for 3 wharves in Area C. But a condition of that, receiving that money, was that we establish a wharf service. And their thought process was, we'll give you the capital money, but you have to operate and maintain them so they don't run into disrepair. The previous area director was reluctant to create the wharf service, and therefore the money is, and the clock has just been ticking. So now we're down to a couple years, and if we don't do that capital work, we have to give the money back there. So I think we had some communication errors in the community and how they understood the wharf service. There was a large petition against it, and I think we're going to improve our communications to the community and take another shot at seeing if they will support it. If they don't, money goes back to Transport Canada, and the wharves get no upgrades.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, we have options A through C. Do we have a subsequent? Sorry, that was C?
That was voted on C.
I apologize, I was somewhere else there. I'm back. So C is passed. Okay, so number 11, we go to bylaw 465, Quadro Island rezoning, and that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
So moved.
Director Mohini. Second was Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none is carried. We have options here. So that the report for the public hearing on bylaw 465 and all other related records be received. Director Mohini.
So moved.
Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. And that bylaw 465 be given third reading. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Director Mohini, Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Sorry, did you have something, Director Mohini? Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to say that it was excellent to see infill density happening in Kwathiaski Cove as called for in the Q Cove Village Plan.
Thank you. Again, we'll just do that. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And that bylaw 465 being Quadro Island zoning bylaw 1990 amendment 140 be considered finally passed and adopted. Director
moved.
Mahoney. Director Wally. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you. And bylaw 471 and 472, Quadro Island OCP rezoning, that the report from the CAO be received.
So moved.
Director Colburn, Director Lott, second. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And that the, excuse me, the report for the public hearing, bylaw 471 and 472, and all other related records be received.
So moved.
Director Mahoney, Director Vonish, discussion? Director Mahoney?
I would like to note that this report also had 84 pages separating the public hearing comments from the written submissions, and that the written submissions were sorted and some of them were miscategorized. So I'm happy to hear that we're going to make changes to that in the future.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none. We're on C, that bylaw 471 be given third reading.
So moved.
Director Mahoney, Director Vonish, second. Discussion? Director Mahoney?
Thank you.
Mahoney, sorry.
Mowini. There was lots of community engagement on this application. A significant majority of neighbors as well as residents from across the island voiced strong objections to this application to rezone and amend Quadro's official community plan. Neighbors and others quoted the OCP, which states as objectives to support continuance of large lot sizes for shoreline areas and to direct small lot densities to residentially designated areas in the interior of the island. Many neighbors mentioned that during the 2007 official community plan process, the possibility of this neighborhood being designated for smaller lot sizes was soundly rejected. The proponent of the application also spoke to the official community plan, stating that since its creation was 15 years ago, there have been significant changes in attitudes, lifestyles, and economic factors. I agree that it is time for Quadra Island's official community plan to be reviewed by our community. However, that is not adequate reasoning for approving this application. Bylaw 1213, Quadra Island zoning bylaw, states that permission for a second or subsequent dwelling is not to be construed in any way as a justification for future subdivision. And this is another reason why I do not support this application for rezoning and amending Quadra Island's official community plan. Thank you.
Okay, any other further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? Sorry, opposed, can you keep your hands up, please?
Just electorals.
Just electorals, pardon me. All four. Thank you.
So D is.
D, yes it is. E, that bylaw 472 be given third reading. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Director Mahoney, second. Director Vonish, discussion? All in favor? Director Rice, opposed?
The rest.
Okay. Then it is passed. Thank you.
Defeated.
Oh, sorry, defeated. I lied. Sorry. Just seeing if you're paying attention, if you're not sleeping yet. Defeated. I apologize. And we're here.
F is superfluous stuff.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yeah, we'll move on past F. Okay, bylaw 482, the revenue anticipation borrowing, that the report from the CAO be received.
So moved, Colburn.
Colburn? Second Wally, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We haven't had to use this, I don't think in the last 5, 6, 7 years, but it's a safety net in case regional districts receive their money on July 1st from the member municipalities. Pardon me? August 1st, sorry. And in case we don't have enough in reserves or operating capital to make it to that point, we borrow some funds, and then as soon as we receive our money, we pay that money back. So it's just a anticipation borrow in case we run out of money that we haven't used in a number of years, haven't needed it. So, but just in case we pass this bylaw, and so everyone can get paid and continue working and doing the operations in the regional district.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. And that bylaw 482 being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of the funds in anticipation of the receiving revenue now be introduced for the first time. Director Wally and Director Chapman, do we have discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And C, that the rules be suspended for bylaw 482, be given second and third reading. Director Wally, Director Chapman, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the bylaw 482 be given, being revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw 2023 now be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted. Do I have a motion? Director Colburn? Second. Director Mahoney? That was closer, wasn't it? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Correspondence. We have from 10, thank you. So correspondence 1 through 10 be received. Do I have a motion, please?
Move receipt.
That was,
What would you like to pull?
hang on.
I just had a couple of comments on number 1 and 8. I was hoping we could pull those.
Yep, we'll pull those. So we're still on, we had Director Rice and Director Lott. Discussion was to pull 1 and 8. Any further discussion? Pardon me?
2 to 7, 9 and 10 still left.
2 to 7. What he said. Pulls 1 and 8. Thank you. It does go all the way to 10. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Okay, you want to discuss 1, Director Mawini?
Thank you. Number 1 was the Manul First Nations final agreement. In addition to the First Nation, additional land, and I wanted to say congratulations for that. And additionally, I was really curious about the quality of the map that it was included. Much of it was illegible. I wasn't sure if it had gone through multiple fax machines and scans or something, but I was hoping that maybe we could get a better quality map so I could read the locations that had been added.
Motion to receive 1 and 8, please.
Motion to
One at a
receive.
time? We have to do it one at a time? We're going to do it one at a time. Motion to receive 1.
Yep, motion to receive.
Thank you.
Second.
Director Rice, Director Moini is second. And we have discussion. We just had.
I can respond if you wish.
Please, the corporate officer will respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we are aware of the problem with the maps, or the map that was attached to item number 1, and we did try multiple venues to try and find a better map. We were not able to find a better map, but certainly we keep trying. That is the board's wish, absolutely.
Thank you.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Motion to receive 8.
So moved.
Director Moini, Director Colburn is second. Discussion.
That's me.
That's you.
Well, this letter has an ask for $600, but I was a little unclear what exactly it was for. And maybe staff can speak to that?
We'll go to the CAO.
We don't know what it's for. Like, we don't have any further information. If you want us to explore, we certainly can. Oh. I know the answer. There you go.
Please, Sean Koopman will answer that question.
So through the chair, I just have some inside knowledge on this application because the applicant is a long-term volunteer of our emergency program. The Parkinson Support Group used to meet at the Baptist Church regularly once a month, however, the Baptist for free, but the Baptist Church is now charging $50 per meeting per month. So the $600 would cover them to continue to have their meetings at the Baptist Church.
Any questions for Mr. Koopman? No?
Thank you, Sean.
Okay, so we're on receipt still. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, hearing none. Carried. Do we have a subsequent? Director Vonish?
I'd like to make a motion to provide the $600 to the grant and aid funding to meet this request.
Do we have a second? Director Lott? Discussion. All in favor? Oh, sorry, one moment. All in favor? We'll do it one more time. Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Number 5, ICE-T Board appointments. That the December 13th, 2022 news release regarding appointments to the Board of Directors for Island Coastal Economy Trust be received.
Can I make a motion to receive 9 instead? Because we received
Did we do
1
that?
through 7, but we didn't do 8, which was just done now, and then we do 9 and 10?
Sure.
Corporate Officer?
Mr. Chairman, sorry. Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that the board received all correspondence on those numbers 1 to 10, with the exception of numbers
Yeah.
1 and 8.
So what he's actually saying is I did that correctly. That's one, write that down. Okay.
So I don't understand why number 5 is back on the floor, but perhaps the chair can explain that.
Is 5 back on the floor?
Yes, you were.
Did I?
You were speaking to it, yeah.
Because it's right in the middle of the 10. Right.
How do I retract that?
How do I get rid of the 5? We're just going to say the 5 is gone. Okay? And I thought I was doing so well on that one. Okay. So let's go back to the number 5 on the ICT board appointments. We're on receipt. No?
We're done with correspondence.
We're done with correspondence. Why am I bringing that up again?
I don't know.
Jeez, you were supposed to flip the page. You didn't flip the page. Oh, look. We're going to go to closed session. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a recess.
You gotta move into closed session.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what's 25?
Second, Colburn.
Discussion? All in favor? Oh, Director Wall.
I just wanted to thank the chair for catching up to the rest of the room.
Hey, did you notice it was much faster this time than it was the other meeting? I just wanted to point that out. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
I'll make a motion that
And-
we go into
Sorry?
closed under 91 FGIJNO 92B of the community charter.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if we could just get that as an adjournment instead of termination.
We're going to put that as adjournment opposed to termination. Right? Everybody cool with that? Excellent. Discussion. Or sorry, we had a motion. We have Director Colburn and Director Rice. And we have discussion and we have all in favor. Opposed? Motion's carried.
So then you need a motion of adjournment?
No. So folks, we're going to take at 2 o'clock, please. We'll come back to the closed session. Thank you.